So when I was little, I wanted to be a cash register person. Please keep watching. That is not the dream I'm referring to in the title. So my sister and I, after the cash register person at the grocery store would beep our items, we would do it as well and then bag everything. I thought it was the coolest job. I still love to play, store and cash register with my kids now. And so that was my dream. Like, no doctor, lawyer, astronaut here. I wanted to work the cash register until I was in the 5th grade. And what happened then is I was spinning around in this beautiful skirt in a play. In our class, we were doing this play, and it was about a stranger with a lantern that came to visit these two sisters. And there was this euphoric joy I felt spinning around in this dress as the character. And it was an ease that I hadn't felt before. And I remember thinking, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And that has never wavered. I decided when I was 10 years old that I wanted to be an actor, and I have wanted to do that ever since. Hi, everybody. This is going to be a chit-chat type of video. I'm just drinking my iced latte. I love an iced vanilla latte. And I want to talk about how I basically gave up on my lifelong dream to end up pursuing something even better and just as creative and just as fulfilling. Shocking, I know, because I didn't think this would be just as fulfilling. My name is Steph, and I'm a baby name consultant, a content creator, a mom of 3, a lover of all things whimsical, and I talk about baby names on this channel mostly. And this is going to be the story of how I became a baby name consultant when I went to school to become an actor. This is going to sound weird, but my main goal was to be Midwest famous. I was a weird type of actor kid because I didn't dream of going to LA or New York. I have a lot of anxiety and I like to be close to home. I was really close with my family and I wanted to be well known in Minnesota. I wanted to be Midwest famous in the Chicago, Minnesota area. So I ended up going away to school at University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. I got a theater degree with a concentration in acting, and I did a conservatory-based program. That's a lot of words, I understand. It's just that we had to audition for this program. So I auditioned for a lot of different acting programs, but when I first saw the Krannert Center for the Performing Arts, which is where we would perform at Illinois, I was absolutely in love. I remember that feeling. I remember walking into the theaters and that feeling of that rush of joy, and I was like, this is where I want to be. Thankfully, I got in. So you audition for all of the professors, and then after sophomore year, so you start the conservatory-based program, which meant my classes were decided for me from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. every single day. And then I had to fit my gen eds around that. But after sophomore year, they could cut you from the acting program if they thought you weren't good enough, I guess. And they could have you, you could do theater studies or you could do a tech role. I remember when I got that letter, still living in the dorms, and I raced down to the laundry room in the basement because I wanted to be alone when I opened my letter. And thankfully it said that I had been accepted to move on to the junior and senior year of the program. And I was so grateful because I couldn't imagine what I was going to do if I hadn't gotten in. I learned a lot at acting school, a lot about life, a lot about myself, a lot about my insecurities, a lot about authentic and genuine human expression and emotion and how difficult it is. It's so funny because it's you just learn how to walk and talk. Well, it's surprisingly difficult to walk and talk what you're supposed to do when you're not being yourself. And then also to come across and bring a part of yourself to a character. It's very difficult. I found it challenging but rewarding. I was cast in our productions and I loved being in rehearsal. I loved all of my classmates. You are bonded for life when you and your fellow classmates pretend to be an animal for your midterm and then you have to die in your final performance. I was an emu. You had to do the most bizarre things. One time we had to spend 30 minutes going from laying down to standing up. We had to wear unitards and analyze how our body moved and our voices. We took voice classes. We took physical movement classes. We took scene studies. We had to strip ourselves down to the bare bones and really examine humanity. We had to really examine why do people react the way they do to things. And it's taught me so much in life. Anyway, acting school was incredibly expensive and I have student debt up to my ears. I'm almost done paying it off. And it was worth every single penny. I loved my education and then promptly moved to Chicago because Urbana-Champaign was close by. It was 2.5 hours. So I moved up to Chicago because I wanted to work and audition there. But it's really hard. I do sing and I did some musicals, but that wasn't my bread and butter. That's not what I was really good at. And so I wanted to do straight plays, which don't really pay a lot and don't really have as much opportunity to get equity or union signed. And of course, I had to get a full-time job. So I became a nanny, and that was very rewarding, but it was a full-time job, and I had to then audition on top of that. And it was for mostly things that were rehearsing in the evenings because I couldn't do shows that rehearsed during the day or audition during the day. And so it was very limited. And I did a few odd things here and there. I didn't get to do what I wanted to do in Chicago. Like, it wasn't possible if I wanted to live and support myself. And I also had these dreams of becoming a mother. And I knew that it was so difficult. Like, I wasn't going to be, I'm missing a nail. Sorry. This is authentic. This is off the cuff. So I knew that I had to support myself, and I knew that I wanted to become a wife and a mother someday. Like, family was really important to me. And I know that a lot of actors put that on hold, because if you are willing to take any role, like, and it's not a bad thing. People who go on cruise ships and who travel, or who will take regional, like, traveling musicals, like, they get paid that way. You can get benefits that way. You can get your equity card. I just wasn't willing to do any of that. And so I limited myself, and I started doing other creative things while I was a nanny. I started blogging about my wedding for a company called Wedding Bee. I started writing my own blogs. I started, trying to just create art on my own. And I wasn't sure how that was going to look. It was mostly auditioning. It was mostly trying to come up with a way to perform. And it was tricky because a lot of people end up starting their own companies or producing their own plays. And I just didn't have that type of community there. A lot of my good friends in Chicago were not anything to do with actors, which is fine, but you need kind of a group to help support you. So anyway, I ended up meeting my husband in 2009. I met my husband, Ian, at a bar. That's a whole nother video and a whole nother story. And we got married in 2013, and then we had our first kid like within a year. So we moved home to Minnesota, and I became Mother Steph. I became focused on motherhood, which was draining and rewarding and absolutely beautiful in so many ways. And I would never trade my early 30s of motherhood for anything. So I put theater and life on the back burner, or theater artistic life, I will say, on the back burner. And I had my 2 boys right away. And then after my second son was born, he was about a year old, I decided I was going to audition for a community production. And I got back on stage, and it was everything. It was so fulfilling and beautiful, but it took me away from bedtime. It took me away from all of the evening stuff, and it was a lot. I ended up having my 3rd child, and then we had a pandemic. And at this point, I'd performed a bunch. I'd joined a theater board, all at the community level, because it was so close to my home, and I was able to do it while raising my 3 kids. And we get up to 2020, and like every other millennial, I downloaded TikTok for the first time. I was like, oh, you can post videos. Well, I want to post videos. Of course, I thought I should do the dancing trends. And then I thought, well, I'll talk about theater and acting. And then I thought, well, I'll talk about being a stay-at-home mom. And that's where my first videos kind of hit, is talking about stay-at-home mom life versus working mom life, because they wanted to pit us against each other. And I was like, both are hard. Being a woman, being a mother in this society is difficult. Both are difficult. And then I started to talk about birth empowerment, which is really what got my account to grow at that point, 10,000 people a month. And so I would do skits about, saying no to drugs, or saying no to an episiotomy, or just like having a supportive partner and how they can be supportive. And basically I had 3 hospital births. I did want to try a birth center or a midwife at one point, and it wasn't in the cards because I was in a high-risk pregnancy, the last one. I learned a lot about advocating for myself and giving birth. I promise this will all come back to me giving up on my dreams and theater. I promise. So I really wanted to raise awareness about how you advocate for yourself if you're not a medical person and you want to have a fulfilling hospital birth the way you want to do it. Because a lot of times they have a pathway that they want you to take when you have a hospital birth. It's like, get the IV, get the drugs, sit here, do that, lay down, push on your back. And I didn't want to do any of those things. And I knew that other people probably didn't know that, because for my first 2 births, I had no idea that there were options. You could push in any position you want. Just because it's easier for the doctor doesn't mean it's easier for you. Okay, this isn't going to be a birth empowerment video. So anyway, I would start to get medical questions, and that was tricky because I don't have any qualifications to answer medical questions. I wanted to talk about other things with babies, like what to buy for a baby shower and baby names. And so one day I posted a video about how I approached baby names and my rules or my ideas, and that video kind of took off. And then I had some people asking, I think the first letter was J, which is funny because it's one of my least favorite letters. They were like, do you know any uncommon J names? I was like, of course. I loved uncommon names. Like when I was naming my daughter, I was watching videos and trying to soak up every unique baby name out there. I'd known like my kids' names were going to get more uncommon as they go because I just loved them. I loved uncommon, unique names. And so I responded. And then another person asked a question, and then another person. And soon I'm just replying. And we're talking about baby names. It kind of snowballed from there, and I started talking about baby names just as much as I was talking about birth empowerment. And then at one point, it was like July 2021, and my best friend was like, why don't you start charging for this? Because I was helping so many people and my DMs were full of questions. That's how you know you're ready to start a service. That's how you know you have something that the market wants. People were DMing me for their questions, and they were like, what goes with this sibling? What goes with this sib set? We didn't have the terminology back then. I was like, I don't know about that. I don't know about charging people. That seems weird. But I went on Fiverr, and that's a platform where you can charge people for it's about $5, but really it was any price. Of course, I started at $5 for 10 names because I thought, well, why would anyone pay for this? And it took about a month to get my first client, and somebody did purchase. And then eventually I was like, well, I better up it to 10 because I had a couple customers at that point. And I was still like, I'm spending way too much time on these name orders to get $10. And so it snowballed from there. I kept raising the price, and I was on Fiverr for maybe like a year and a half, maybe. And then I officially transitioned to my own thing using Google Forms, and I'd use Venmo and PayPal. But the way it happened was so organic, I can't even tell you. It was me saying yes to a bunch of things. Now you might think like, well, Stephanie, you quit your theater when you wanted to have kids. But that's not true. I was going to get back into it. I was starting to audition in the Twin Cities again. As my kids were getting older, I was auditioning for bigger companies. I wanted to do more, and I'm still involved in the theater. I'm still on a board. I still direct sometimes. I still act sometimes. But the reason I say I quit my dreams is because now my priority is my small business, and it has creatively given me so much more than I could have ever have dreamed. I wanted to be Midwest famous. Well, people recognize me. Like I was at a library story time, and I've been on an airplane or like in an airport. Okay, that wasn't in the Midwest, but still pretty cool. People have recognized me. I have achieved that level of notoriety. I've been in articles, been in the Star Tribune, my kid's pediatrician, and my hairdresser. People have seen my videos. They get sent my videos. I have been on NPR, which is the Minnesota Public Radio, and I've been on local television, which is so cool. I have achieved what I always wanted, was to be sort of well-known. I hate to use the word famous because I'm just a lonely little content creator, but I have achieved what I wanted, was to be known for something. And I got to do acting all along the way. So I did birth skits, and now I do name skits mixed with other things. Like performing in front of a camera, doing content is something that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people, and they start off very timid. And I am still working on bringing more of myself to my long form, because I find the short form vertical so much easier, and I feel a little more vulnerable in a long form content. I can't even tell you why it's different. It just is. I think two things can exist at the same time. Like I really wanted this one thing, but I also said yes to everything else that came my way. And I have had so many flops and failures. Like you don't get to be a successful person without them. So anybody that you follow that you're like super inspired by, know that they tried 800 other things. I failed at becoming an actor in Chicago. I failed at becoming a blogger, a famous blogger, or somebody, website creator, whatever. I have failed at launching merch. I have failed at starting a Cameo. I failed at so many little things here and there that if you only look at my successes, you'll be like, wow, how cool is that? She got to do that. But I worked hard and I said yes as it came up. That is the key to me, fulfilling my dreams in a completely different way. I literally said, I will do theater. Like I was still trying to do theater. And then I said yes to signing up for TikTok, yes to posting, yes to making content that I wanted. And then when somebody asked me for something else, I said yes to making that content. And then when people were asking me for baby names, I said yes to making those name orders and to selling my expertise. And I kept saying yes and yes and yes. And I think that's really important because now I have girl bossed myself into a very fulfilling creative career. that I get to be at home for. Like, I could never have pictured this 10 years ago. Like, if you had told me you're going to give people baby names, you're going to make videos about baby names for the internet that you can do from your own little home office and be around to see your kids and take them to school and pick them up, I would have said, you're crazy. Everyone, when my kids were little, I don't know if you're a stay-at-home mom, if this happens to you, but everyone wants to know, are you going to go back to work when, and I'm curious too about that with people. Are you going to go back to work when they go to school full time? Well, it's difficult because number one, there's so many school days off, plus all the summers. So if you get a typical office job, what are you going to do in the summers? You have to put them in camps, which costs money too. People don't realize the school day is shorter than a typical work day. And then so if you just work, a lot of people would work in the school systems and do paraprofessionals or do admin, or they'd work part-time, but it's very difficult. And I never had a good answer for that. I was like, I don't know. My husband is not the type of person to be like, now you got to get a job. The kids are in school. He would never. His mom was a stay-at-home mom her whole life and a house manager, which I like to call it as well. And so we just were like, well, if we do, we'll have extra money, right? And I never knew what that looked like. And then all of a sudden I became a content creator and a baby name consultant. And now there's so many different avenues. And yes, you have to diversify your income because you can't rely on the TikTok creator fund. I'm still trying to get monetized on YouTube. So please like, follow, subscribe, watch this video on repeat. Just set your phone over there and keep it. I need the watch hours. But like, I've started a Patreon, which if you would love to support me, you can do that for $3 a month. That's so helpful to creators. It's very hard because all of my content is free. And then I'm limited on the amount of name orders I can do. And also just like, it's a lot, it's more work. And so my content reaches everyone. So I do like to have other ways like my Patreon and to have platforms support me as well. And again, I have a brain that just like kind of floats off. And that's one of the beautiful things about my brain is that one time I just decide I'm going to do this and I do it. And it causes like a domino effect of good things. Sometimes it doesn't work. But I say yes way more than I say no. I have an idea, I consider it, and I go for it. There was this video, Coco Moco on TikTok, and she said one of the signs of someone who's really successful is that there's not too long of a time between when they say they're going to do something and when they actually commit and do it. So if you sit on your great ideas for 6 months, you're not doing yourself any favors. You have to just post. You have to just commit. You have to start the business. You have to start the service. You have to put the digital download out there, whatever it is. And I found that I was like, that's so me, because I will literally, my best friend is like very logical and she's also my business manager, and she'll be like, that was not your goal for this year. What are you doing? She's like, I can't reel you in, but like she wants to give me space, but she's also like, okay, you're just kind of all over the place, because I will be inspired and I will follow that. That's probably part of the actor in me. And do I regret? Like sometimes I'm like, man, I have the best of both worlds. I feel so grateful. I feel so lucky. I feel like I stumbled into a pot of gold, like, you know, Scrooge McDuck's pile of gold, like piles of gold. Like it's gold. And it's not that I make a ton of money. I promise you, I make a very meager part-time wage because of just the amount of work that I can do. It's very part-time. So this is not me being like, I make $100K a year. I wish, you know, if I got to that place, I will tell you guys how I do it. But what I'm saying is I feel so grateful that I get to be creative. I get to be in front of a camera. I get to do artistic, creative, actor type things and still run a business. And I find baby names to be incredibly whimsical and creative and artistic. I think there's so much beauty in naming your child. I love that it combines motherhood and artistic stuff. Like I feel so grateful. And part of the reason I ended up here is because I said yes to so many random things that you wouldn't normally say yes to. When people first found out that I was charging for baby names, their eyes were like so confused. They were just like, that's insane. Like no one's, what? I get so passionate about this. And I just think this is not what I wanted for my life. Like when I was younger, since 10 years old, I was going to be an actor. Am I an actor? Kind of. I act a lot on my videos. I make skits and I perform, but I just found something even better. I would say I found something even better. So have a dream, follow your dream, but don't stay so closely tied to it that you can't explore the other options and pathways that come up as you live your life. That's your advice. If you stayed this whole time and listened to me ramble on about dreams and artistic baby names and actor life goals. I appreciate you so, so much. I hope you liked this kind of chit-chatty video. It's good for me to get in front of the camera and just like tell longer stories like this. I thank you all for being here. Don't worry, the next video will be about baby names, and I will see you then. Happy naming!